Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are going to talk about adding a swedge or a false edge to the top of your knife. This is actually a really simple process, but I thought I'd show you guys just super quick how I do it to make sure they're perfectly even and clean and everything ends up exactly how you want it. So let's get into it. So in another video, I showed you guys how I add my gut hook to this mini harpoon design. And I thought I might as well show you the false edge portion of this as well. Now, there's a couple different ways to do it, and it kind of depends on how I'm feeling for the day, how I do it, but I'm gonna show you guys kind of the foolproof method, which involves a jig and a flat platen on your grinder and a work rest. This way, there's just no variables. I mean, they're pretty simple to freehand grind, but some days you're just not feeling it and it's best to go with the jig. So I'll show you guys how I set it up and my process to make sure it ends up perfect. So the first step in this is get your scribe line down the center of the top there, however you do it. I use one of these height gauges and a granite surface plate. I've showed it in a ton of other videos. And then what I like to do is kind of figure out what angle I want this to be at. I normally, with the mini harpoon, try to make it flush with, I guess, this top part level with the top of the jig. That seems to work good. And I give myself a little point so both sides, when I do it, line up the exact same. So you can see I've got a little standoff there and a standoff there, and my little sharpening choil fits right in it. Make sure this is level and you're good to go. As far as the angle goes, you just kind of have to decide how far down you want that to go, how far down or how tall you want the bevel for that false edge. So I always start a little steeper on the setting, and then you can always work your way back and drop it down a little bit. So that's kind of the basic setup, how I do it at least. Vice grip holds it in place, and then this can rest on the flat platen and you can slowly cut in your bevel. So I'm gonna put, normally I do these with 120 grit belt, and then just because you're not really removing a ton of material, 120 seems to work good. This is Magna Cut, so it grinds pretty hard, but it works out pretty good. I do it with a 120 and then finish it with a 220. And again, this is getting stone washed, so that's about as far as I have to go with it. Sometimes a little hand sanding is necessary, but let's cut over to the grinder and show you kind of the getting this cut in. So here you can see kind of how this is gonna work. What I do is I kind of look back and make sure the top edge of that knife is pretty level with the top of that flat platen. That gives me something to go off of, and we're just gonna make nice, easy passes here and cut this in. I have this jig set at 15 degrees for anybody that's wondering, and you can kind of work off of that. If you are interested in any of this stuff, everything will be in the description below. The jig, the height gauge, everything you guys need to do this will be in the description below. Let's get the grinder on and set this swedge in place. can see it takes about 1 minute to get that kind of primary set. And then what I like to do is finish this side. So I'll switch this belt out with a 220, get this side finished, and then flip it, finish the other side, and then you're done. But again, super simple. It's kind of up to you how far back you want to bring this. I don't want this to be all the way to nothing, just to keep this so it's not super sharp, just because of that gut hook. Your thumb could bump into it or whatever. So if you were grinding this to maybe actually add a cutting edge to the top, you'd take it probably a little thinner. But just working off of my center scribe line there, which you guys probably can't see super good, gives you a really good visual of how far in you want to grind that. So I'm going to switch over to the 220, get this side finished, and again, just mirror that side with the jig, flip everything, and hopefully this all turns out pretty sweet. All right, let's show you guys really quick kind of how this is looking. And it turned out pretty good. There's one side and the other side looking pretty good and even. This is actually the first time I've ever done this backwards. I always grind my bevels first, then I do my swedge, then I do my gut hook. But just the way things happened, I did things backwards. But it turned out pretty good. Hopefully that gave you guys an idea on how to do that, at least something to kind of work off of and try. Again, you can freehand these pretty easily as well. And when I do freehand them, I grind them kind of like this against that flat platen. It gives you pretty good results. I just thought I'd do this quick video on using the jig to make this to where it's completely foolproof and you get perfect false edges every time. So hopefully that helped you guys out. If you have any questions, drop them below. If you want to look at any of the stuff I use in today's video, there's links below. And like always, I appreciate you guys watching and hopefully you learned something.